Today on Rack Recordings, I start a mixing series on showing you how to mix heavy music. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Rack Recordings. Today, we're going to start doing drums on a song by iAsilent. I got these stems from Brian Hood from Shit to Gold. Check that out. That's a pretty cool thing. Today, we're going to start with drums. So, we're going to go over how to mix in MIDI samples with live drums and get a rough drum mix. So, what I have so far here, it's just the raw drum files. So, let's take a listen to here. You ready? Just raw, edited drum files. All right, so I already have everything in its respective folders so that the track is nice and organized. So, like under drums, I have the acoustic drums and the digital drums, guitars, all under the same thing. Under Vox, I have Scream and Sing. So these are all the Scream ones, and then the effects and so on. So let's start doing some drum samples here. So I'll load up Contact, because that's my sampler of choice. Now I have a lot of drum samples. I have both of the Get Good drum packs. I might use some of these for snares, but the only thing we're going to be using drum samples for is the shells. So I'm going to be using the actual live cymbals. Yeah, so I don't like to print my samples with any type of reverb or room sound on them. This one has one already on it. I'm not a big fan of that because I like to add my own stuff to it in the actual mixing process. So let's see how this would sound with these drums. So not too bad. We'll mute that, add another sample in here. All right, so let's check out this snare. All right, not a fan of that one in this mix. We could try my snare, see how that sounds. All right, so I actually kind of dig my own snare on that. And it's not really a plug at all. I just like how it actually sounds. So we'll keep that one in there. Let's find another snare. Let's try this slam drum snare. All right, so that'll be cool to use as like a low end for the snare. I like that one. I tend to like Babinga snares a lot, so let's give this one a try here. Yeah, we can make that one work. All right, so what we'll do is just solo this and see how we can get these snares to blend together. See if it might be wise to have to flip the phase on any of them. All right, so let's now those are pretty blended pretty well. So let's we'll slowly bring this in with the acoustic drums and see how that sounds. So I'm digging that. I'll turn any room samples off on any of these. Those are off. That's off. All right, good. All those room samples are turned off now on that snare. So let's find a kick drum. Now we'll use my favorite kick drum. It's from Jigsaw Audio, the SJC Kick 22x22. This is usually my main kick sample. So let me blend that in. All right, so that usually works for anything I want to use it for. Now we'll get some toms. Now for the toms, I'm using the toms from that SJC Kick from that kit there. And it appears that they have, I'm just going to delete one of these rows here. We'll bring in the rack tom here. And we'll bring in the floor tom. After we're done there, we'll make an entire room sample for the whole kit. This doesn't even have any rooms. All right, so now I'll mix these down. Alrighty, good. So now we have all the shells are mixed down here. I think I'm actually gonna get rid of the acoustic shells. Just use the printed samples for that only. So I'm actually just gonna go like this and drag these right into this folder here and just completely get rid of that folder. Good, so now we could start mixing the drums a little bit. As you can see, my toms, I like 50% left and 50% right. Now that's only if you have two. If you have three, it pretty much matters on the song and the placement. But hi-hat, I like to do 35% to the left. The splash will be 50% to the left. This mini China, I guess we can do 50 to the left. And the normal China will be 50 to the right. Okay, the reason I do that, it just makes it easier. There's nothing like this. Like I'm not gonna go 25% to a certain position. It's just easier if I do left and right. Now the hi-hat in general, I like doing that because I think it sounds a little wonky if it's 50% to the left. I don't know why. Don't ask me why, but I just prefer if it is 35% to the left. That's just where I found I personally like it. Let's start mixing these drums. We'll get the levels correct. We could start with the kick here. Okay, so then you see these tracks here. It says hi-hat, splash, mini China, and China. Those are all spot mics. So those are cymbals that were mic'd closely instead of just having an overhead mic. These are what you would process a little differently than you would process your overheads, because these are going to be bringing definition to the actual overheads themselves. That's what we have right now. So let's take a listen to that. All right, so that's coming out all right. Now that's just a little balance. Now, one thing that we do now, we could start processing the drums a little bit. You know, like these aren't really going to need much processing because they're already processed samples, but these, on the other hand, will. So I'm going to do a couple things to these samples to make them fit a little better, but can't really do that too much until we get into the mix. So let's process this overhead. We'll use Get Good Drums, Smash and Grab. Solo the overheads and see what we can do here. All right, so that sounds pretty cool. Let's take a listen to that with the drum mix now. Okay, so that's gonna work there. Let's start bringing in some of these spot mics, see if we can get these to cooperate. All right, let's see what that did with the overheads. So that's pretty all right. The mini China. Cool. So let's we'll blend that in now. All right, now the splash here. All right, so there's the splash. Let's bring that splash in. Okay, now we'll do some hi-hats. All right, so we'll bring that hi-hat in, and then we'll be done with the cymbals for the moment. We are now done with the cymbals, so we'll take a listen now to the whole drum mix. All right, so that sounded good. Obviously, we'll mess with the levels when we're further into the mix, but for this point in time right now, we're gonna add a couple buses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buses we have to add. All right, so we'll name this one kick, snare, toms, spots, overhead, and this will be snare room. And then we also have to add an entire bus for this bus and label it drums. So now all of these buses here point to this one bus, and then all of these here are going to point to their respective buses. So this will be, I know this is probably the wrong way to do this, but I prefer mixing through buses only. It makes the track count easier for me, and it's easier for me to understand. So let's see where we're at now. Now we can process these a little bit, so we'll compress some of this stuff. And again, we'll use smash and grab. So this one's a kick. Okay, so there's this. Let's see what we can get for snare. All right, so that should work for the snare. Let's see where we're at so far here. Snare room. So let's try that with the snare here. I also forgot that I wanted to get these toms here from not being so flubby sounding. So now we'll move on to tom 2. I feel like that's extremely roomy, and I don't know why. Let's try something like this. It removes the room sound from stuff. So let's bring this down to nothing and see if that does anything. All right, so that did stuff. Let's see these toms together now. All right, so that kind of worked actually. So let's take a listen here. Our kick and snare is a little loud, so we could bring these down a bit. All right, cool. Now we will compress the toms a bit. The low tom's a little loud. All right, so that works. So let's take a listen from the beginning again. We'll take a listen to how the drums sound now. Okay, so those drums turned out pretty good. It's a nice little starting point for us once we start getting guitars and vocals into this mix. Yeah, that's about all I have today to do to these drums. So I'll be linking everything in the description, the band, drum samples, etc. I'm still having a discount on my website, Rack Recordings 50. It gets you 50% off your entire order. RackRecordingsSoundStore.com. That will still be in the description down below as well. Next week, we're going to move on to guitar and bass. Following week, it'll be vocals and effects, and then finally mastering. So, thank you so much for watching today, guys, and I'll see you next time.